This is called the show. If you didn't know, this is called the show.
Ladies.
Happy Wednesday, squad. You are listening to the show on Discover-Radio. Workout Wednesday. I started working out again this week. I took Monday off because I was being lazy. You know what? No, I wasn't being lazy. It was that time of the month again. I realize now, looking back at it, look back at it. I'm just playing. Monday, I was feeling so tired. I was exhausted. I was down. I was a wounded warrior. And I was like, why am I feeling so sick? It took everything I had to take my kids to school. And then I am like, you know what? I can't do anything today. And I just came back home, crawled in bed. And of course, the next day, before we go back to the next day on Tuesday, Monday. So what I decided to do, I was like, this is not right. I don't like the way I'm feeling. So I took multivitamin, B complex, B12 complex, and then I also took Tylenol. And for whatever reason, that worked. So I think I was low on energy, or my immune system needed some vitamins. Well, the next day, cut to, I was like, oh, hey, hi, how's it going? Mother Nature, she's back. So I realized that is why I was feeling so exhausted on Monday and had no energy and didn't do any workouts or anything the weekend or Monday. So I'm like, hi, good to see you again. So I'm trying to beat her so she doesn't bring me down where I'm going to be exhausted and not working out. So I worked out Tuesday, the day that I started, and then I worked out again today. So I think I'm doing pretty good so far. You guys, what do you think of the iPhone that is coming out? I think it's ridiculously expensive. I know there's some of you out there that love, they're all into technology and everything. So you guys got to tell me, what is going to make worth your money for you to buy the new iPhone? Like, what is it that you're looking forward to, that the one thing that it has? So let me know and try to convince me. To why I should get it. But I'm not a huge iPhone person. I really am not. I think it's ridiculously expensive. I haven't even mentioned my guest today. I've got Major Williams. He's going to come in. He's going to promote his new album, No Copy. And I also have Phyllis Fender, who is the wife of the late Leo Fender. And yes, it's Fender instruments that you're thinking about. So they have a book that it will be out November 17th. You guys have to go get a copy, leofender.com. Those are my guests, and that is coming up shortly. You guys have to also tweet me. If you've worked out, tweet me. Let me know what you've done. Workout Wednesday. You're listening to the show on Discover-Radio, and I am ready to introduce my guest, Phyllis Fender, the wife of the inventor of the electric guitar, Leo Fender, and then I also have Randall Bell. Hi, welcome to the show.
Hello there.
How are you?
Having a good day.
So for those of you that don't know, Randall grew up in Leo's neighborhood, right?
Yeah, my mom's 95. In fact, Mrs. Fender and I just visited her a few minutes ago. She's 2 blocks away.
Wow. And then also your father was the head of the R&D department at Fender's company. So you know Leo. You've known him for a long time. This is the reason why you co-wrote the book, with Phyllis. And the book that I'm talking about is Leo Fender, The Quiet Giant Heard Around the World.
I did grow up around all things Fender. My dad did run the research and development at Fender. It was right down the plant was right down the street. The Fenders lived in the neighborhood. Leo was so famously quiet that he's basically invisible in the neighborhood. But fortunately, Mrs. Fender is a great storyteller and is sharing what he was really like with the rest of the world. And I'm happy to help her do that.
That's amazing. Like the one thing that really piqued my curiosity. So for those of you, it's Leo Fender in 1946 founded Fender Electric Instrumental Manufacturing Company, and he invented the electric guitar for Fender, which is a lot of the musicians use Fender as a choice. And the one thing that I find fascinating to me is that Leo didn't even play the guitar himself, right?
He didn't play the guitar. He doesn't know how to make it work in any way, shape, or form. He doesn't know how to tune it. All he knows how to do is listen to it and talk to musicians who show him what's good and what's bad. But there were no bad things, so just good stuff.
See, that to me is fascinating. Like, how does somebody invent such an amazing instrument that all these amazing artists use and the inventor himself doesn't even use? Isn't that?
It is a strange story, but Leo was fascinated with anything at all that was electrical, that you plugged in or you turned on. And he had an impulse that his job was to create instruments that musicians around the world could have to give us people that don't play necessarily music. Because what would we do without music? And he was really driven man to create the perfect instrument. And I think by all means that people would agree that he did create the perfect instrument.
He sure did. And, do you, what are some of the stories, Randall, that you can mention, like growing up in the neighborhood, with Leo, that we might be very, the listeners might find interesting?
Well, Fender was just part of the Fullerton fabric. As a kid, you don't really appreciate what you have. Of course, I remember the thrill of opening my first Fender guitar, but, my dad worked there. The Fender guitar was invented at 107 South Harbor Boulevard, which is, right here in the town where we all live. My dad brought home a lot of Stratocaster cutaway wood, which we would use as bonfires at the beach. And my dad actually made a block kitchen table out of Stratocaster wood that's still there in the house. My dad was a woodworker and a mechanical engineer is really what it was, but he had a hobby of woodworking. And he made doll houses for his grandkids, including my daughter, out of Fender fretboards and that kind of thing. So it was just part of growing up in Fullerton, part of the Fender legacy.
Did you play the guitar? How old were you when you started playing the guitar?
Oh, my parents got me a guitar, I think when I was in junior high. I think I was about 12 years old. And also I got lessons. I wanted to be a rock star. I had the guitars. My dad gave me a Fender Mustang, then a Fender Strat. And I had the guitars. I had the passion. I had the hair. I had everything except for the talent. So I never went anywhere. But we sure had a lot of fun, I can tell you that.
Well, so how old were you when you finally realized, who Leo Fender was, and you started appreciating, his work that he's done and what he invented?
I can't remember a time when I didn't know who Leo Fender was. My dad had enormous respect for him, but he was very, very quiet. And actually, I'd asked my dad if I could meet him. But Leo was the kind of guy that if you didn't have something, important to talk about in terms of the instruments, even if you're a rock star, he wasn't interested in talking about himself. He wasn't interested in giving autographs or pictures. He was very focused on the design of the guitars. I mean, Phyllis can tell you at the captain's table, he'd be designing guitars while everybody else is talking to the captain. He'd be writing drawing guitars on the cloth napkins. So I probably walked by him 100 times and never knew it. He was very, very quiet. But that's just kind of how he was.
Phyllis, what are some of the stories, that we are going to find in his memoir that you co-authored with Randall?
Well, the fact that he had a glass eye is going to be a surprise to a lot of people. And he was basically deaf in both ears. Somebody had turned on an amplifier when he had his head inside trying to repair it, and it shattered his eardrums. So he had a lot of things going against him. And yet his aim, and always was his aim, was to make better instruments. And regardless of what happened to himself, that wasn't important. What important was what was the next thing coming out that the musicians of the world could use to supply such good music for all of us.
That's amazing. I had no idea that, he was deaf and he also, had a glass eye. How was it, you being his wife, how was it for you?
Excuse me, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, being by his side and, having all these, like you said, he had all these obstacles, but he wasn't letting anything get in the way. How was it for you just seeing your husband, how he just succeeded and had this amazing instrument?
Well, actually, I kind of was like Leo in that way, in that I paid no attention to them. So he has a glass eye, big deal. So he has hard of hearing, big deal. He's still Leo, and he's still doing what he feels the world needs. And I was so proud of him. He was, he could have sat down and pouted and been an angry man in a corner, but he never, ever spoke of anything like that. It was, let's get on with the job.
Yeah, Leo also was presented with the Country Music Association Pioneer Award in 1981 and was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame, the Rock Walk of Fame, and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Like that alone, that it just speaks, for itself. It's just like, oh my goodness. Like he, what's fascinating is also that he did not like living, like he wasn't, how do I say this? Like, no. You know how a lot of people, make money or they invent something, they usually, it's like they flaunt it or like they show off by having like nice things. And Leo didn't do any of that stuff. It's like he still decided to live in a motorhome.
Yeah, he did that until when we were married. And then he decided that we needed a home because I had children and grandchildren. So he bought us a house on a hill, and it's not a fancy house. It's a very comfortable house, but there's nothing fancy about it. I don't come from fancy doings, and he, as a farm boy, certainly didn't come from anything fancy. We didn't need it in our life. We had joy. We had this beautiful family, my children, that he accepted with love. He'd never been around children, and he was just excited. And my mom's cooking topped all of the good stuff. He loved my mom's farm cooking.
So you didn't have kids together?
Well, no, because he was in his 60s and I was my late 40s.
Yes.
And so I had them when I was 25. Now, I had 2 boys and a girl.
Now, your children, when did they realize who Leo Fender was?
Well, they knew he was somebody, but to him, he was just Leo.
Yeah.
He was just our new dad, our new uncle, or our new grandpa, or he was. None of us in the family treated him other than what we treated each other.
Yes.
He was just part of our great big hugging family. It was. He wasn't treated in any way. I did have 2 sisters that played guitar, and they sometimes would talk with him, and he enjoyed that very much. But other than that, we didn't discuss guitars that much, and it was just family. It was just a good old family.
Wow. It sounds like he liked living just like a nice down-to-earth type of life, not really... It seems like, everything that he did, with the inventions and all these, awards that he got, it just, everything was like to the side, and what was important to him was just like family.
Right. Well, he also, received a Grammy for his work in music and the